Hey everybody, what's up? It is Thursday, July 2nd. 2 more days to July 4th. Hope everybody's doing well. So we have another one of these crybaby. This time it's a big fish hedge fund guy, Ray Dalio. Some of you probably know who he is. He ran Bridgewater Hedge Fund. By the way, I read the other day that I think he's closing down his hedge fund and he's just making the whole thing a family office, which is like his own money. That's what George Soros did. And a lot of these guys, they've made a lot of money. Maybe the markets are just beating them up and they're like, you know what? The hell with this. I'm just going to run my own money out of a family office or whatever. But that's not what I want to talk about. So he's another one of these guys now whining and crying about, it's the central banks. It's the Fed, it's the driver of the markets and the driver of the economy. There's no more free market. There's no more, the capital markets are not free anymore. So like, when I hear this, I'm thinking, if you know that, and if you believe that to be true, then that's like the greatest inside information you could ever have. I mean, think about it. And you should be listening to these guys, or you should be reading their words and having the same reaction as I'm having. These big, huge hedge fund managers, or these really important Wall Street analysts crying about, it's not a free market anymore. The Fed, the central banks are the drivers of the economy. Like, if you know that, and if you believe that to be true, so, what's the problem, dude? So that means, you know how their actions are going to affect the economy. Now, of course, they're wrong in their understanding, and I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole, they're not into MMT. They don't understand MMT. They don't understand the impact of policy, monetary policy. They don't even know the distinction between monetary policy and fiscal policy. Hang on a second. Yes, my friendly local ambulance service. Okay. That's another thing, by the way, as long as I mention that, let me repeat, to these people, it's all about the Fed, or it's all about the central bank. Never once will you hear them mention fiscal. Never mind the fact that we're already 5.1 trillion, which is 1.3 trillion over where we were last year at this time, which, by the way, last year was a record spending year. I mean, they just completely ignore that. But it's incredible to watch these guys. And by the way, they're probably crying. You know why they're crying? Because they lost money. Because they're frustrated as hell. And even though they're throwing their arms up in the air saying, it's the central banks that are driving the economy and there's no more free markets and no more capital markets. Again, dude, if you know that to be true, that's the greatest gift you could ever have. That is the most important inside information that you could ever have, right? I mean, on the one hand, they're crying that the Fed is, juicing up the market, but they're not making money. They're not making money when ostensibly they believe that to be true. And they look at the market going up and they correlate that to Fed action. So if you know that, how come you're not making $1 gazillion? So they are so confused. It is unbelievable. I mean, it's fun to watch. Because they're reduced to crying children. These are mega billionaires. And by the way, don't think they're billionaires because they're geniuses in the market. I mean, that should be obvious by now. I mean, here's a guy crying about the Fed pushing them, juicing up the market. And he's just sitting there on his ass why don't you buy then if that's true? If you know that to be true, why don't you? No, he's losing money. If you're managing, I think his hedge fund manages 180 billion or managed 180 billion, of which he gets a 2% management fee. So that's what, 3.6 billion just in a management fee? Then he gets 20% of the profits. So, I mean, even if he makes 1%, what is that? 1.8 billion, and he gets 20% of that? So I mean, the guy's a billionaire. If you're managing that much money, you're a billionaire like quick. And I mean, these guys, if they have a genius at all, and I've said this in the past, if they do have some kind of genius at all, it's their ability to raise capital, it's their marketing, it's their networking, it's, you know, all that stuff. And I give them a lot of credit for that. I don't have that. And I think I'm a lot better than these guys. And this is a hard business, managing money. Look, and I advise, you know, people through my service. And there's times it gets stressful as hell, and you don't want to hurt anybody, and you don't want to have people lose money, and you want to do the best for people, including myself. I've been trading for 40 years, and you know, I make these mental game videos saying, hey, you got to tough it out, you got to get through hard times, you got to push forward all the time, you have to deal with discomfort. So yeah, that's a part of the game. And I could see a guy who's made billions of dollars off of management fees or whatever say, you know what, screw it, I'm out of this, I'll run my own money. But it's the crying and the whining that is, I mean, to me it's comical. I don't know how you perceive it, but like, just think about it. I mean, here are all these guys, and there's a litany of them. I mean, it's not just Dalio. I did a video and I did a podcast about, you know, they have big name Wall Street analysts talking like this. They have Gumlach is talking like this. They have all of them. Like, to them, it's like the game is not fair because the market only goes because the market only goes up because of the Fed. So like, again, if you know that to be true, dude, then why aren't you buying? This is what, I mean, you got to kind of laugh at this guy who runs that blog, Barstool Sports. I mean, he gets it, man. He's like, the market only goes up. Now, I don't think he connects the dots between, and by the way, it's not the central banks, if you want to know. But, you know, that's their mythology. That's their belief. That is so ingrained in their mind. And sometimes you could look at things and they look correlated, but they're not really correlated. Like I went over an example yesterday about how, you know, if it's true that when the central banks pump reserves into the system, then it should also be true that when they take it out, markets go down. But I gave you an example yesterday where, you know, it went up 100%, it went up, what, 50% over a period of time when we had the biggest reduction in reserves in history. So all that stuff is not true, but they believe it to be true. And they're not losing money because they bought the market and it went down when the Fed was pumping, right? They're not losing money because of that. They're losing money because they're going short, or they're staying out of the market when at the same time they're crying that the Fed is pushing up the market. And the market has been going up, but it's been going up because all of the fiscal injected into the economy has massively increased incomes and savings. And it has floated the economy when we should have been in a major, major depression. So the policy reaction, the fiscal policy reaction was exactly correct. They need to continue that now. But, you know, in another week or so, we're all going to have to pay taxes, and we're all going to have to pay rents, and we're all going to have to pay mortgages again, and all that stuff is going to be a fiscal hit. I don't see them making any new, passing any new legislation for that. I mean, that's happening. That's a fiscal cliff that we're about to follow. But so yeah, Ray Dalio, I can't think it anymore. First of all, this notion of a free market, that's just fantasy. That's like saying, okay, we don't have societies, we don't have political systems, we don't have laws and regulations, we don't have policy, we don't have policymakers. I mean, in every country, from the freest country, if you want to call it us or whoever, Hong Kong, to the most repressed, North Korea, there's policy at the top. That's the overarching thing. This notion of the free market, like we're living in some kind of a jungle world where whatever goes, whatever happens goes. It's just, that's a fantasy, man. And these people are crying because they're so frustrated and they're so clueless. And it's like, it's funny because again, if you know that to be true, then why are you crying? Then just buy. Like, according to their thinking, like they should just be standing there with a bushel basket waiting for the money to fall in. Because they're literally saying, the Fed's pushing up the money and pushing up the markets and I don't like it. Yeah, you're sitting on your ass doing nothing. I mean, it's crazy. Anyway, folks, go to my website, pitbulleconomics.com. Learn something, learn MMT. Don't be like these guys. Take their money. Take their money. All the links right here in the description below. Have a great 4th of July. Bye-bye.